Hi, good evening. Welcome to Next Genius webinar series. Today we have Richa with us from Makers Asylum. Let me start the session by briefly introducing both Richa and Makers Asylum to all of you who are watching this session. Richa drives strategic collaborations and partnerships for Makers Asylum. She believes that the future of learning is evolving and alternative spaces will be significant in customizing people's learning journeys. Richa is also a graduate from Indian School of Business and in a previous stint worked with the government of Andhra Pradesh to drive fintech and blockchain investments into the state as part of the Chief Minister's IT advisory. Richa has also worked in the Indian telecommunications industry. Her role as the business intelligence to the Chief Technology Officer at Idea Cellular involved strategic and analytic support to the leadership of the organization. She was also awarded the Woke Woman of the Year award for the M19 initiative spearheaded by Makers Asylum during the pandemic to provide 1 million face shields to support frontline workers in 49 days. Today she is here with us to share some programs and about her organization Makers Asylum, their offerings, and what inspired her to start the organization. Yes. So let me share some information about Makers Asylum. It's a community maker space focused on fostering innovation through purpose-based learning, focused on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The space houses various labs that are co-located in order to facilitate prototyping of ideas that are interdisciplinary in nature. In addition to the space, Makers Asylum also offers a design and product innovation consultancy arm for corporates, an online retail shop for its own product lines, and an edtech platform that focuses on portfolio building for young talents. Nurturing the culture of innovation over the years in the areas of hardware, design, and sustainability, Makers Asylum has built a large community of makers and has been on the forefront of the maker movement in India. Welcome, Richa, to Next Genius webinar series. We are really happy to have you with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, Richa. Now you can share the presentation and it's going to be a Q&A session. I'll ask you a few questions regarding the organization, your offerings, what inspired you to begin Makers Asylum, and the students, uh, about how it's going to benefit the students, the ideal age group of students. You could shed some light on all of these. So let me begin with the first question. That is, could you tell us more about Makers Asylum and the programs that are being offered to the students?
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I mean, you've already introduced Makers Asylum, but just a sort of quick background on what it is. So Makers Asylum, we started back in 2013 out of a little garage in Mumbai to create a space for people to come and collaborate. So you can imagine it to be like an open lab for anybody to come and experiment and, sort of really get their hands dirty and make their ideas happen. So we believe that, when you use your hands, when you make something, you learn better, and it's sort of a lifelong sort of learning experience for you because you're creating something. Like, creating something or making something is a very human level thing. So we really believe in that kind of a mindset, and the space sort of started very organically to create that space for innovators, makers, anybody for that matter, to come and really experiment with their thoughts and make it into something more tangible for the world to experience. And over the years, what we've been doing is we've been sort of creating a lot of learning programs, etc. I'm going to share my screen as well. A lot of programs and a lot of different kinds of ways of engaging with people to create that maker mindset, which is a little different than just learning by rote, or just by learning things which have been asked for us to learn. So we really sort of challenge the status quo and tell people to move away from the traditional thought process and look at how you can do things differently, how you can solve problems for your community differently, how you can collaborate rather than compete with people that are around you, your peer group, and create an environment where we're collaboratively working towards impact and using technology for impact is what we pretty much do. But I'll quickly sort of, so over the years, it's sort of become a very innovative and exciting space for people of all kinds of ages. But our programs are sort of very specific to certain age groups. So like, for example, today I'll be talking about Innovation School, which is focused for teenagers who are looking to sort of become conscious change makers of the world, who want to, contribute to the real problems of the world, and and create solutions which really are useful for their community. So we want to give and impart those skills via the program, and at the same time create something very unique for each of the talent that comes into the program, so that they can really make an impact and really make a difference in their surroundings. But yeah, that's a little bit about it. But I'll just, to give everybody who's seeing this presentation a quick insight into the way the space looks. So we have a lot of things like, a lot of tools that we love. So anything from a woodworking space to a metalworking space. So a lot of kinds of designers, artists, architects, engineers, all kinds of people come and use it. So this is, for example, this is Priyank. He's a metal artist. He's actually making a table with metal over there, and then he's sort of creating that. Then we have a laser cutting lab, which is again a very exciting tool to for a lot of architects as well, to sort of visualize 3D spaces and things like that. Then we have, of course, a lot of 3D printers, which are, of course, great digital fabrication tools to quickly go from ideation to creation. We have an electronics lab. We do a lot of kind of virtual reality space, various other things. And we recently moved to Goa. So we're inside this really beautiful 100-year-old heritage home, which we've converted into a maker space. So that's how the space sort of looks for everyone who's watching. I'm going to stop it there, Helen, and pass it back to you.
That's really interesting, Richa. It's very beautiful to see the location, the kind of different shops, the space you have to work on. What really inspired you, Richa, to begin Makers Asylum? What was the motto behind this, or what motivated you?
For sure. I mean, actually, I wanted to sort of show this to everyone. So I drive the partnerships, and I started officially working with Makers Asylum about 3 years ago. But my partner Vaibhav, who's the founder of the space, started this back in 2013. So a little quick story is that so he was in Boston. He was working at MIT Media Labs back in 2013 with one of the medical eye diagnostic startups. So he was working on virtual reality based eye diagnostic devices. That means to say that how you could use like your phone and a virtual reality device to give you an eye test. So for example, so there's a portable virtual reality device, you put your phone in it. So it'll tell you what is the power in your eye and things like that. So he was doing a lot of rural sort of integration work in India. They'd sent the startup at MIT in Boston, sent him back to India to sort of set up, their base and figure out how they could do and expand more things in India. And back when he came back to India, and it was a hardware startup, right? So they needed to prototype, they had to sort of work on their designs and improve it and things like that. But there was no space in India which provided that access to tools where you could go and sort of work on your product. Like, for example, if you need to make any changes to the design of the virtual reality device, how do you do it yourself, right? You did not have any space like that back in the day. And incidentally, it sort of started off as his personal need, because at the time he was sort of looking to innovate on the product. He wanted to experiment, and there was no space like this. So he literally started it in a back room of his previous office, and he called the room an asylum. It was like 100 square feet space, literally, like very small space with some tools, and where they could do some kind of basic level of prototyping. And basically what happened was one of the days, the ceiling of that office sort of fell down and broke all the furniture. So that's when he thought that instead of buying furniture for the space, why don't I call some people and build the furniture? So he called in for a DIY meetup, and 6 people showed up for some beers and pizzas and built tables basically for that space. And that's how it became a community space where people wanted to sort of come together. So that's how the story is. But over the years, it's become a very organic sort of a community where people feel associated and an ownership to the space and want to come and make things. So over the last 8 years, we've actually moved 7 spaces. So it started in 100 square feet space. Now we are in Goa, which is about a 10,000 square feet Goan home, but we've moved 7 to 8 times actually. And every time that we've moved, people from the community have come and built the space. So, somebody would come and paint the furniture, somebody would paint the wall. So everybody feels very sort of, they really love the ownership of the space, and that's how we like it to be. So that's the little story about how it started.
That was a very interesting story, and it's a really inspiring one of how you began Makers Asylum. Moving on to your programs, Richa, could you tell us about the different workshops and the programs or courses that you have, the duration of these programs, and whether these programs are certified for the students and for the people who are attending it?
Yeah, so while we started off as a space, over the years, our focus has been around educating people how to integrate tools into their innovation process, right? So what our skill set as a team and our community lies in that if you don't know how to use these tools, we teach you how to use these tools, and also then create that whole sort of a transition from just learning these tools to applying it to certain problem statements and creating your own solutions for it. So our primary focus over the years has been around education. So people across board. So we work with teenagers, with social entrepreneurs, we work with startups, we work with freelancers, we work with even retired individuals. So our age range at our space is actually quite diverse. And we are very discipline agnostic. That means to say that we work with doctors, we work with engineers, we work with artists, we work with designers, all kinds of people, because we believe that today's world is very complicated, right? And the kind of problems that we all are facing, you look at climate change, you look at, all kinds of issues, look at the pandemic, for example, right? So these problems are supremely complex problems. And we believe that when you collaborate from different perspectives, one, you're able to solve better, and two, you're able to innovate quickly, right? So that's why bringing in different perspective is very important for us. But our programs range across board. And so, for example, Innovation School, which I'll be talking about today mostly, is for 13 to 17 years of age. So we look at 8th graders to 12th graders. We believe that this particular age group has the ability to sort of, change the way that we look at the world, the way the problems are going to be solved in the future, right? And in this particular age group, if you give them the right tools, the confidence, and the network of mentors and global people who can change the way that they think about, problem solving. That's where we focus the program Innovation School, right? Where we're focusing on introducing technology modules for you to learn, one, about future technology areas that will be important to solve these problems, and two, how do you sort of use those skills then to make your own projects, identify the problem statements that you're passionate about, and then work towards that. So Innovation School is sort of designed for that particular age group. Then we have another flagship program that we do with a lot of different organizations like UNESCO, UNDP, EU, and others, where we bring in a lot of university partnerships over there, which is called the SDG School, which is for 18 and above. Over here in the SDG School, we host it twice a year, which is a 2-week-long sort of design thinking boot camp for you to go and solve problems aligned to the UN SDGs. Now, this particular program is, again, sort of a lot of universities from different parts of the world, now in 30 countries that we've collaborated with, send their students in, plus we have open applications for, social entrepreneurs, etc. And then that program is sort of designed for, that kind of an outcome. From a certification perspective, all our programs are certified by Makers Asylum and the partners that come in for that particular program. So yes, I mean, a straightforward answer would be yes, but I can also share my screen to quickly also show you how the Innovation School works. Now, what we've done is that we've sort of created a unique hybrid kind of a model, because we know that in the pandemic, things have moved digital. Now, how do you sort of create a hands-on learning experience at home? Now, for that, what we've done is that so we have about 6 skills that I was talking to you about. So anything from virtual reality, electronics and robotics, design, virtual reality, CAD modeling, home automation, etc. So we've put these six skills together, where we think are the important skills to sort of look at problems from that perspective. And what we've done in this particular winter boot camp that we have starting soon, which the applications are open for, the part one is skill building. So we'll have 100 days of weekend sessions where we'll be hosting these skill building sessions, and you'll get to do each project, one project, which is a guided facilitated project in each of these skills. So that means to say that you're learning by application, it's project based, right? And what we will do differently is that we will also send you the toolkits at home. So all of this hardware will actually come to your home, and you'll be able to actually do this live with us while you're also, making it with us at home, right? So you'll have that whole element of sort of hands-on learning as well while we're doing this live with you, one is, in a batch, with our instructors. And the part two of the program is a portfolio building residency where we will be working as teams online to go from ideation to prototyping of your ideas. So basically, we'll take you through the whole journey of design thinking, framing your problem. How do you sort of look at user research, which user group that you want to solve the problem for? How do you, test your assumptions about certain problems? How do you look at what kind of solutions that you want to sort of implement? And then how do you prototype? And how do you sort of, then present your solution? So this will be a sort of 2-week long engagement where we will be, it's going to be intensive, but what you will do is you'll work in groups, in teams to come up with solutions to problem statements that we will, sort of collaboratively work on. So that's a little bit of, sort of the gist of how the innovation school works. And of course, we have mentors from all across the world, very exciting partners that we have on board via various other programs also that we do. And I could possibly also give you sort of insight into some of the talent projects, but I'll stop that for Helen's next question.
Great, Richa. I also came across this program that is co-working of the innovators. Could you shed some light on this program, and also what is the main motto of this program?
So for us, because as a physical space, we love hosting a lot of different kinds of people. So over the years, what has happened is that a lot of different startups have come out of our space. About 30 of them have come out of our space organically, because by the virtue of coming together and working out of here, using the tools, etc. So what we do with the co-work piece is that you can also come and access our tools and work out of here. So a lot of different kinds of early stage startups, small businesses, anybody comes here and starts prototyping their ideas, and also has a community of people to sort of also bounce their thoughts with, so that they can go from, again, just ideation to actually making their solutions and then starting their businesses and things like that as well. So that's one part of the physical infrastructure, how we use it as well.
All right, Richa. You talked about your instructors. Could you tell us more about the expertise of the instructors? Where are they coming from? How experienced they are? And also, how are they helping the students out there?
So our facilitators and instructors are actually makers, because over the years, what we've done is as part of our community activity as well, right? We've attracted a lot of different kinds of individuals who have an inclination towards making. So all of these instructors that teach you, one, are expert makers. That means to say that they've done over 100 projects where they've made something or the other with their own hands. They could be engineers, they could be artists, they could be designers, but we don't believe a lot in sort of traditional way of identifying or sort of check boxing, that okay, if you're an engineer you can be our instructor, but we look more from an experience standpoint. So we look a lot at the hands-on projects that they've made and their physical experience of making it. That means to say that they can go from actually integrating electronics to maybe woodworking to using a laser cutting machine. So they are very multidisciplinary like that. So most of our instructors that you'll find have a very exciting sort of a making background, and that's what is primary to us when it comes to our instructors who will be teaching you. We also have a lot of global mentors who come in for the piece on design thinking and the portfolio building for Innovation School. Now, those guys also are part of a large global maker community. But again, they also are researchers at exciting universities in, places like France, United States, and other parts of the world. There are also people who, again, have a very exciting hands-on experience on how to make products, how do you innovate. They also come from backgrounds which are very unique and niche. For example, the niche areas of technology where, the world is sort of progressing into. So, for example, we talk a lot about open innovation. Like, what is open innovation? How do you openly innovate, right? And things like that. We talk a lot on, how do you use different kind of digital fabrication tools. So a lot of these people are into those niche technology areas as well across the world. They'll come and share with you what's happening across the globe as well, right? Because they're working in very specific sectors. So that's the kind of sort of background of people that, we have.
Superb. Moving on to our last question, that is mainly the students. How have how are the students being benefited from these sessions? What's their experience? How has it been so far? What do you feel?
For sure. For that, actually, I'm going to just quickly share my screen and show you some of the talents that we have. So, for example, so from a perspective of the benefits of the program, they're multifold, right? One, what we're really trying to do is sort of ignite the whole mindset around making. So, which means to say that you're sort of having an insight into a lifelong journey with us. What we want you to do is become excited and passionate about solving problems, about making things. So we want you to be passionate as much as we are passionate about this thing. So one, you're getting access to an amazing community of people who are so passionate about making, problem solving. These are the people who've actually done real work on ground. They've innovated so many things, right? So one, you're getting access to that kind of a mindset, which is a lifelong kind of a community that you're sort of being part of. Second, you're also getting access to the way that you solve problems. That means to say that we're not going to be just doing projects and and be like, okay, fine, you're done with this thing. What we're changing is the way that you look at the world around you, the way that you look at problems around you. So that's going to be again, it's going to be sort of a lifelong skill, because while the projects will change, the problems will change in the world, but what you will go back with is the way that you can break down these problems and how you can solve them. So that's what is going to be exciting for you when when you come out of this program. And of course, like, the least of it that is going to be happening is that you're going to be creating something which is going to be exciting, unique, and which you can talk to other people about university applications. For example, if you're starting your own social entrepreneurship journey, or you're starting your entrepreneurship journey, whatever that is, at the end of the day, you'll have an exciting story that you can talk about, that you've solved for, and things like that. So I think that's primarily the couple of things, but I can show you some of the projects. For example, this is over here, you can see Nakul. He's part of our program. So he went to Dhirubhai Ambani in Mumbai. He's part of that school, but he created something called, he was really passionate about, teaching teenagers how to, instead of having a sedentary lifestyle in front of your computer, how do you sort of encourage teenagers to move? So he created this game called Boosh Beta, which was basically around sort of using augmented reality and like you've seen Pokemon Go and things like that, right? So he used the same concepts, but the idea was to sort of create a competitive environment for people to actually, move physically. So for example, if I'm running, in my area, and that map shows that I'm the leader of this area because I have some personal statistics on running. Now you're my friend, Helen's my friend, and she's also excited that, okay, fine, I'm going to take over Richa's territory. So she comes and runs in my physical sort of, area. Now, if her statistics are better, she becomes the leader of the area and things like that. So it's sort of a physical integration of augmented reality and things like that. Then Sam over here, again, he's a homeschooler and a very exciting talent. Basically, he went on to, now he teaches people about these skills. Actually, he's an instructor now. He runs his own company where he's teaching, and he's just 18 years old. Now it's not like he's a very old guy. Now he has been part of various programs that we have, but what he built was a low-cost wearable device for the visually impaired. It was basically using, how do you sort of identify oncoming obstacles for somebody who's visually impaired? And, it's a stick with some kind of vibration and things like that, that sort of alerts, people who are visually impaired to do something like that. So that's, those are some kind of profiles. This was again another project that was designed for blind pianists, to help them. What happens with blind pianists is that they have to learn a lot about their notes that they need to play. So this is sort of an assistive tech that tells them which note to play next, things like that. Then there are a lot of these other things, like for example, this one was made, which was for paraplegic, guitarists. So it's like a pedal, board, which sort of helps you play the guitar, for example. So there are different kinds of problem statements that, a lot of these talents have tackled. And I'm really impressed the kind of, compassion, empathy, other things that have come in, because, these projects sort of, we love that piece of empathizing with people, and what you really need is what you want to sort of create for them, right? Yeah, so there are multiple of these that I can show, but I can show you some testimonials of some of the. So we have a lot of different kinds. We have a lot of talents from different parts of different schools that are part of the program already. But some of them have gone to some really exciting colleges as well. To MIT, to Delft, to Columbia, Cree, Sustainable Design School, and all of them have some great feedback to sort of give as part of the program. So, so what we really do is that, one, of course, there's a whole community experience that you get in terms of, the kind of people that you need to really, evolve from just learning about something to actually being passionate about it. And then, of course, as a byproduct of it, I'm sure you all will, go to some great universities and things like that as well in the future. But yeah.
It was really interesting, Richa. Rather than just focusing on the technical skills, it's helping people, especially with some sort of difficulties or disabilities. It's really helping these people. So, good job, and it was great. It was great having with you and listening to you. It was really an interesting session. Thank you so much. Before we close the session, any final piece of advice or comments to all those who are watching this video right now?
No, I mean, it was really a pleasure talking to you, Helen. Thank you for inviting me. I would really encourage, if anyone of you who's sort of listening to this, if you're really passionate about wanting to learn how to use technology, how do you really, if you're having that problem of how do I go from just thinking about an idea to making it, please feel free to apply to the program. Our applications are open for the winter boot camp, and I think Helen will share it with all of you. And hopefully, if you do join the program, we'll be able to interact more and work together on creating your passion for solving some exciting problems for the world.
Yes, to everyone who is watching, we'll be sharing the link and the registration form in the description below. And before we close the session, I have a small resource for you all. It's the College versus College Fair, which is happening on September 23rd, 24th, and 25th from 6 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. You'll hear to more than 25 colleges and universities of the world as they share about their academics, campus, facilities, location, community, and the application process. Now, what's special about this event is the format itself. The 3-day event will have 75 minutes long Zoom webinars, and each webinar is divided into 5 sessions of 15 minutes each, wherein each college will present about its academics, campus, facilities, and much more. In each 15-minute session, 2 institutions will simultaneously share the information. And this will help you see how colleges and universities are similar, yet they are so different. It's a very unique format, so we won't be recording the sessions. You'll have to attend the session live. And this is an ideal event for educators and students from grade 9 to 12. Yes, and so we'll be sharing the link to College versus College Fair. You can register using the link that is provided in the description box below. And also we'll be providing the link to register for the programs that Richa mentioned during the session. And with that, we come to the end of this interesting session. Thank you so much to everyone who is watching it, and have a great day. Thank you.